So, all of us have seen the Harry Potter movies, right? Some of us even grew up with them and maybe even read the books, including me.
Now, yes, the movies and books, they get darker, and yes, the last movie is kind of depressing as fuck.
But I never really minded that. See, I was young when I read the books, and when I finally watched the movies,
It felt like I grew up with Harry and his friends. I never minded the depressing tones of the last movies because, well, that's what life looks like, right?
in many ways, going from young and innocent with a little bit of attention to, well, dark and realistic, it kind of parallels how we grew up.
Now, in this video, I'm going to take a look at how the Harry Potter franchise lets us grow up with the movies and how these movies kind of affected my own childhood.
So it's the year 2001, right? And it's a great year for movies.
Many movie franchises were born this year. The Lord of the Rings movie trilogy started this year. The first Shrek movie came out.
We got the first Fast and Furious movies. Many great films were released. J.K. Rowling had already released the first 4 books of the Harry Potter book franchise at this point,
And from the success of these books, the Harry Potter movie franchise was born.
including my dumbass later that year. Jump forward to 2009. This was the first time I read a Harry Potter book.
I must have been about 7 to 8 years old.
My mom inspired me to read a lot, so I decided to read her favorite book franchise.
Harry Potter.
Now, I knew there were Harry Potter movies too, but at this point in my life, I was really into reading.
And so there I was at probably 7 years old, reading my ass off until I finished the entire book franchise.
I was young, so half of the time I didn't even know what I was reading.
So when I watched The Philosopher's Stone, the first movie, at around 8 years old, it felt like a whole new experience.
Yes, I had already been introduced to the magic in the books, but to see this on film,
It was something entirely new to me, and it immediately pulled me into the movie.
And I remember being so scared of the troll scene, I had to skip that shit the first 2 times I watched it.
yup, because that's how invested I was.
When I watched it at that time, this movie was kind of an adventure to me.
And, well, that's exactly what life looked like when we were young.
Sometimes things are scary, but everything is an adventure, right?
We would let our imagination get the best of us, and reality wasn't really important to us.
Now, I know Hogwarts doesn't exist,
Magic isn't real.
but at that age, though, I ran around the woods with a stick in my hand and shouting spells from the movies. Not because it was real, but because I wanted to believe it was.
The many things Harry gets introduced in this movie, they felt exactly like going to high school for the first time when I was 11.
The magical world of Harry Potter may not be real, but the feelings Harry experienced,
They felt real for us too.
Going to high school was exciting. What could we expect?
who were we going to meet?
What do people expect from me?
Now, I had a lot of imagination, and to see Harry Potter, which, I also kind of looked like at that age, go through these obstacles and adventures.
It wasn't only relatable, it introduced me to a curse that many of us, including Harry, are gonna have to face eventually. So, I just talked about a curse we and Harry are gonna have to face.
Is it time to face that yet?
Is shit getting darker?
Nope, not entirely.
Because welcome to the Chamber of Secrets, the sequel to the Philosopher's Stone.
Now in this movie, Harry goes back to Hogwarts for his second year.
Now, The Chamber of Secrets is just like its predecessor, children's adventure movie.
So I was around 9 when I watched this.
And as you can probably guess, life was still an adventure for me at that age.
Some bad stuff happened to some of the characters.
Hermione got bullied, which, I really felt that shit.
You see, when I was younger, I got bullied a lot.
Because I was an easy target.
I was very skinny and I had to wear glasses.
And I was in my own world most of the time, so I low-key had some social anxiety, which, well, still kind of do.
So whenever stuff like that happened to me, I would be forced to step out of the world inside my head and really face the reality of things.
I had to start making choices of my own, whereas previously, my parents would do this for me.
This is something Harry starts doing more and more in these movies too.
Not particularly from an adventure standpoint, but
More so because that's what adolescence looks like, right?
we start making choices of our own and realize that this isn't easy.
With those choices come consequences in the end.
Life is an adventure, but it isn't always a pretty one.
And sometimes you have to face the reality and accept that.
Just like Harry has to face Tom Riddle, aka young Voldemort, in this movie.
Now, in this movie, people actually start getting fucking hurt, alright?
Ron vomits snails.
Hermione proceeds to get fucking petrified.
And there is an blood-written message on the walls.
And you think that's dark?
Remember, this is a PG-rated movie, the same rating as The Philosopher's Stone.
Now the darker tones in this movie and Harry having to face the reality and choices
Are signs of what's to come.
Harry's 12 years old in this movie, and when I was that age, I had to accept that it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought.
I realized that stuff was going to change. There were choices I was going to have to make.
Hard choices.
All the bad stuff that had happened, it was only a taste of what's coming. And at the end of this movie, Harry understood that. And so did we when we got to that point in life. Ah yes, The Prisoner of Azkaban, a movie that propels the story forward and into darkness, and it handles that tonal shift the best it could have been handled.
At the beginning of this movie, the director, Alfonso Cuarón, he allows us to breathe and laugh a little.
Which kind of feels like an homage to the first two movies, which weren't as dark.
But during all this fun and laughter, we get glimpses of the main antagonist of the story.
Sirius Black.
Now, I think this intro sets the entire tone for the movie.
Yes, this one is still a children's adventure movie, but it won't be like that forever.
From now on, shit will get darker.
Later, when Harry and the Weasleys are all gathered in the leaky cauldron, Harry gets pulled aside. He learns about Sirius Black and that he is coming for him.
Later, we learn that Sirius wasn't coming for him with evil intent. He loved Harry and wanted to take care of him.
Now this is what Harry needed,
Some guidance.
a father figure.
Someone that could help Harry figure out his own place in this world.
Now, if I look back at my life, just like Harry tried to fight Sirius at first,
We might neglect our parents and their advice.
We need guidance, parents to tell us what is and what isn't.
but as a child, we tend to push away our parents. We don't want any help.
We don't want to listen to them because we think we have to do everything ourselves.
We are forced to make more and more of our own decisions, and well, that can feel a little overwhelming.
But that's not always the case, and at a certain point you're gonna have to face the reality again and accept that guidance from your parents.
Early, we figured out that shit wasn't gonna be easy, right?
Yet we still push the people that care about us most away.
In the beginning,
Harry didn't really want to go after Sirius.
he posed the question,
Why would I go looking for someone who wants to kill me?
Now later he hears that Sirius was the one who betrayed his parents and that he was his godfather.
Now Harry wants to go after him.
so how does this parallel us in growing up?
First, Harry doesn't want anything to do with Sirius, right?
Because everything is okay at that point.
He thinks Sirius is, of course, coming for him, but he doesn't really start caring about it until he learns what he believes to be the truth.
And then when the real truth comes out, he can finally feel wholesome again, with a piece of his family by his side.
At first we might not really put much thought into what our parents can be for us.
They took care of us when we were young, and now we have to grow up and figure shit out for ourselves.
Then they try to help us, and well, we push ourselves away like I just said.
We might get mad or respond aggressively.
And then the real truth comes out.
We finally realize that we need to accept help and that we can't do everything alone.
Now, I was struggling in school and I didn't really know how to make friends.
I felt like I could relate to Harry because he's so lonely in this movie.
The movie continues to tackle this theme of loneliness throughout the series,
He just needed someone to help him too.
Someone to guide him.
but that someone has always been there for Harry and for all of us.
And will continue to be there for you.
Accept that someone you call a mother or a father figure will always be there to help. Okay, so shit just got kind of darker, right? Harry's facing his curse. Slowly but steadily, he's gonna have to start accepting the inevitable, just like all of us.
Now, I was about 12 when I watched this, and this was partially because my mother cared for my mental health and didn't want me to watch anything if I was not old enough to do so.
But Harry is 14 in this movie, and for me, shit started getting PG-13 around this age too.
Because when you're 14, everything becomes much harder for you.
You'll experience feelings of grief, love, and
Pain.
Maybe you want to be able to relate to your peers, or sometimes people want to be their own person.
and well, to figure all of that out, it can feel like a whole challenge.
In this movie, Harry gets challenged too.
Just like we were at that age.
But Harry gets challenged a little different though.
He gets thrown into this tournament consisting out of 3 completely fucked up challenges.
The movie starts with what probably is the best Harry Potter theme music I have ever heard.
It immediately sets the tone for the entire movie and all the movies to come.
And after the Land Keeper is killed, well, we know the stakes are way higher.
These are no children adventure movies anymore.
Playtime is over.
Harry has to stand up to his own curse in the end.
Voldemort.
And remember how I said we have to face the curse too?
When you're 14, it starts to become pretty clear what that curse is.
To Harry, that curse might be Voldemort.
But to us,
That's growing up.
Responsibilities.
Guilt.
expectations,
Just like Harry has to face Voldemort, we have to really start facing these things.
just like everybody else.
At the end of this movie, Cedric gets murdered. And this is next to his parents, Harry's first experience with death.
I felt like I could relate to Harry because, well, that year my grandma died.
This was my first time experiencing death, so in the midst of going through these challenges, I had to accept what had happened.
And there were no barriers around me anymore. No emotional guard.
And to be honest, I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling, right? To get exposed to something that vulnerable and fucked up.
It's horrible, especially when you're already dealing with so much feelings.
This movie helped me recognize that I wasn't the only one and that it's completely normal to feel disassociated.
It helped me realize that it's okay to not know what you want at first.
And to not know how to fit in.
Especially when some fucked up shit like that happens.
Loneliness.
I think that's the main theme of this movie, and it had been lightly touched by the other 4 movies, but this one takes the cake.
Voldemort tries to take Harry away from that which makes him complete.
He separates Harry from his friends and the people he cares about.
Harry's curse puts him through loneliness.
Our curse of growing up can put us through exactly the same. And at times we feel like we're all alone.
Even when we have people around us.
Maybe we feel like we can't relate to our peers.
We aren't necessarily alone physically, but we are in our feelings.
Once we start to accept loneliness, it can become dangerous.
It can become tempting to stay alone.
Pushing people away can become habit.
In the Order of the Phoenix, at a certain point, Harry wants to go at it alone.
He wants to ignore and push away his friends.
Distancing himself from them because he thinks he has to face his curse on his own.
When you feel alone, you think it's better to distance yourself from everything. You feel like talking about your feelings isn't going to help.
You have to face your curse, but you're going at it the wrong way.
You need people around you. You need friends and family.
In the end of the movie, Harry realizes that he has friends, love, and feelings, and therefore he can beat his curse.
He finally faces it head on, but not before.
Losing Sirius.
Someone that Harry had accepted as a father figure, that guidance he finally accepted, it died right there in front of him.
Now, I don't know if I should or shouldn't talk about this because I feel like not too many people can relate, but my mother died when I was 15. And the year before that, I had finally found a way to beat growing from child to adult, right?
It sounds weird, but I had a purpose and I made my choice.
I was taking care of her when she was sick, and I actually felt great doing so.
And it's safe to say I grew up a lot in the year time. And I know that sounds weird, but it means I finally allowed myself to accept guidance from my parents, which is a pretty mature thing to do.
I allowed myself to be vulnerable.
When she died, though, it just felt useless. That purpose I had found and that guidance I finally accepted, it died right there and then.
I felt I could relate to Harry. I understood his loneliness, and I think a lot of people know what that feels like.
I think nearly everyone does.
After my grandma died, I felt alone too. Harry accepting the love, the feelings, and his friends in the end, in a weird way, it inspired me after a while to do the same.
This movie shows us grief and loneliness.
But it proceeds to teach us love, connection, feelings.
Things that all of us, whether you went through such bad things or not, need.
Not only to face our curse, but to face our own lives.
So dealing with loss,
Understanding who people really are.
And being a love-infused fucking teenager.
that's what Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is all about.
Now, this is something all of us deal with.
Whether it's the loss of a loved one
Figuring out who people really are.
or, falling in love.
Snape is the Half-Blood Prince.
And Harry witnesses him murdering Dumbledore, and Snape reveals that to him.
But I think the most important moments resonate within the rest of the movie.
Harry deals with the loss of Sirius.
Trips on luck juice and falls in love with Ginny.
This movie, it deals with so many feelings at once. It's fucking perfect.
Love, grief, jealousy, lust, and darkness.
16 years old.
That's how old Harry is in this movie, and that's how all of us were when we experienced these exact feelings.
Our first crush.
Dealing with the loss of a loved one,
Being jealous.
we are on the search for.
Self.
We had started this search before, but we had to give up on it because we went through some bad shit.
I think even people who don't experience death the way some of us do, they experience the same feelings of loss.
We want to understand our purpose. Be a part of something, but we don't know how.
And all this is just a part of our curse.
Part of growing up.
And it teaches us things about others, but also about ourselves.
And I feel like this might be one of the most relatable movies ever made.
When I watch this, it feels like a rerun of my life.
I've been jealous of people too.
I'm in love.
I lost people.
The list goes on and on.
See, it's not only the magic that captures us.
It's the feeling of this being real.
The feeling of relatability and understanding.
The Half-Blood Prince, for me at least, gives me the most of that feeling.
Now, this movie is a build-up movie, and it builds up to the final movie, and in many ways that feels like it's unnecessary.
After all, there are only 7 books. Why split the last one into 2 movies?
Okay, yeah, let's be honest.
Mainly profit.
But I personally think it's great that they did this.
Harry has to prepare before facing his curse one final time.
And all of this, it conveniently plays out the exact age not only Harry's becoming an adult, but us too.
And that's what this movie represents for me.
Harry's getting ready for his final fight against Voldemort, and to do so he needs to destroy Voldemort.
Piece for piece.
See, Voldemort, he split his soul into 7 parts. These parts then latch on to an object or a person, which Voldemort can then hide, of course.
In this movie, the goal is to start searching and destroying these parts.
This is the opposite of what we have to do.
Instead of destroying the parts of our youth as Harry destroys parts of Voldemort, we need to accept them.
We need to understand that these things made us who we are. They brought us to where we are today.
Then we can finally give them a place and maybe even become a functioning adult.
Now, this can be hard, and in the process, we might even lose a friend.
Harry, for instance, loses Ron for a while in his fight.
And this is where we might start pushing people away again, like Harry wanting to go at it alone. He quickly accepts the help though, because he learned from all that earlier.
And in that process, Mad-Eye Moody dies and George loses an heir.
Choices do have consequences, but it's still always better to accept the help and to fight alone.
Now, this fight to accept everything that happens, it's a hard one, but the hardest one is yet to come.
And then it ends. Our adolescence starts fading away, and this is it.
We have endured darkness, loss, pain, love, happiness, laughter.
Are you ready?
You are.
Like it or not, everything you went through, every loss and every win,
It all served a purpose, and it made you who you are today.
And it learned me a great deal of things too.
And I think many of you share that feeling.
I talked about giving it all a place in your heart and accepting it.
And once you did, you can now get ready for that final battle.
Now, Harry destroying Horcruxes is like us accepting the things that happened and giving them a place.
But it's only when Harry figures out he himself is a Horcrux that he can win the fight.
He goes to the Forbidden Forest and meets Voldemort to die. This is it.
But what does that mean for us?
Well, it means the answer's always been there.
It's inside all of us.
Harry's accepting he's an Horcrux, and therefore he's accepting himself.
If we really want to win this fight, giving everything a place and accepting things is not enough.
We're gonna have to accept ourselves first.
And when we finally do this, we can accept who we are and who we eventually want to be.
Now that may not seem like such a big thing, but
Look at all that's been thrown at us.
look at what we had to go through. As children,
Not even adults and already facing those bad things,
It shapes us,
makes us.
and even breaks us.
but even after all that, we still reached this point in our lives, right? We still got it.
Maybe being the chosen one isn't about being what the world tells you to be,
Maybe it's about being and accepting yourself in the best way possible.
and therefore beating the inevitable curse that is growing up and becoming who you want to be. Well, thank you for watching, people. I wanted to make this video to encourage all of you to find some acceptance in yourself, which has got to be one of the hardest things I'll have to do in life. It took me a long time, but I finally accepted myself for who I am. And I feel that Harry Potter is so relatable that it creates kind of a free space for me to talk about my own experiences with shit, and maybe even parallel them to Harry facing his own demons. I hope all of you enjoyed this video though. I know it's a long one, but I wanted to make this the best and most honest way I could, and therefore it had to be complete. Thank you for watching. Bye. P.S. I'm using a script because, well, I feel way more comfortable with a script. Plus, I'm not that good at remembering things, and I don't care if it fucking looks professional or not. It's honest. It's what I wrote. The fuck you complaining about? Shut up. Goodbye.